Good evening, and I gotta tell you straight up, what I'm about to share with you tonight is the kind of story that keeps every economist, every banker, and every defense analyst in this country up at night staring at the ceiling. Because China just did something that hits different. Not a missile strike, not a naval blockade, not troops moving across a border somewhere. No. China just went after the dollar, the United States dollar, the currency that has run this entire planet's financial system since World War II. The currency your paycheck comes in, the currency your mortgage is priced in, the currency that gives America its single biggest advantage over every other nation on Earth. China just collapsed the trade route that keeps that dollar on top. And y'all, I need you to understand what that actually means. Because this isn't just some overseas financial story that doesn't touch your life. This touches everything. Your wallet, your job, your savings, everything. So let's break it down right now, together. All right, so here's the deal. For decades, we're talking since the 1970s, there has been this arrangement called the petrodollar system. And if you haven't heard of it, that's okay, because most folks haven't. But trust me, this thing has been running your financial life in the background this whole time without you even knowing it. Here's how it works, or how it worked. Until tonight, oil, the thing that powers literally everything, has always been bought and sold in US dollars. Doesn't matter if you're Japan buying oil from Saudi Arabia. Doesn't matter if you're Germany buying oil from Kuwait. You needed dollars to do it. Every single country on Earth had to hold US dollars in reserve just to participate in the global energy market. That demand for dollars, that's what kept the dollar strong. That's what kept American borrowing cheap. That's what allowed Washington to run the kind of deficits that would absolutely wreck any other country's currency, but not ours. Because the whole world needed our money just to keep their lights on. China just blew that system up. According to reports confirmed in the last 60 minutes through financial intelligence sources and regional economic monitoring channels, Beijing has successfully executed a coordinated move to collapse the dollar-denominated trade route across the largest bilateral energy and goods corridor in the world. China didn't do this alone, and that's the part that should really make you sit up straight right now. Over the past several months, Beijing has been quietly, and I mean quietly, y'all, because this barely made the news, locking in agreements with Gulf energy producers, Southeast Asian trading partners, and BRICS member nations to conduct their trade settlements not in US dollars, but in Chinese yuan and in a basket of alternative currencies tied to a new payment infrastructure that bypasses the American financial system entirely. Tonight, those agreements went live simultaneously. The dollar trade route, the highway through which American financial dominance has flowed for 50 years, has been rerouted. And the traffic that used to run through Washington's financial system is now running through Beijing's. Before I go any deeper into exactly which trade corridors have been affected, what this means for the dollar's value starting tomorrow morning, and what the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department are doing about this right now, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and hit that bell. Because this story is going to develop fast, and you need real information, not the watered-down version. Stay locked in. Okay, back to it. Now look, I know what some of y'all are thinking right now. You're thinking, okay, but how does some financial arrangement between China and Saudi Arabia actually affect me sitting here in America? And that is exactly the right question. So let me give you the real answer. When global demand for US dollars drops and collapsing the petrodollar trade route drops that demand hard and fast, a few things happen real quick. First, the dollar weakens. When fewer countries need to hold dollars, the value of those dollars goes down. And when the dollar goes down, your purchasing power goes down with it. Everything imported, electronics, clothing, cars, food that comes from overseas, gets more expensive, not a little more expensive, significantly more expensive, significantly more expensive. Second, interest rates. The reason America has been able to borrow money cheaply for decades is because the world needed dollars, and that kept demand for US Treasury bonds high. You start collapsing that demand, interest rates have to go up to attract buyers. And when interest rates go up, your mortgage gets more expensive, your car loan gets more expensive, your credit card rate goes up, business loans get more expensive, which means companies hire less and sometimes lay people off. Third, and this one really hits different, America's ability to fund its military, its social programs, its entire government operation at the scale it currently does depends on the ability to borrow cheaply in a currency the world demands. You remove that demand, Washington has a problem that no amount of political rhetoric can paper over. This isn't abstract. This is your paycheck. This is your grocery bill. This is your retirement account. China just went for all of it at once. Now here's the part that genuinely floored me when I was going through the details of how Beijing pulled this off. This wasn't improvised, not even close. China has been building the technical and financial infrastructure to execute this move for over a decade. The cross-border interbank payment system, known as CIPS, is China's answer to the SWIFT network that the West uses to process international financial transactions. Beijing has been quietly expanding CIPS membership, signing bilateral currency swap agreements, and locking in commodity pricing arrangements denominated in yuan with key trading partners for years. The petrodollar didn't collapse overnight because of one decision made today. It collapsed tonight because a decade of groundwork finally reached critical mass. And here's what really gets me. American policymakers saw this coming. The intelligence was there. The economic analysis was there. The warning signs were documented in report after report after report sitting on desks in Washington. And yet here we are. The reaction from financial markets was immediate and it was brutal. The US dollar index, which measures the dollar's value against a basket of major currencies, dropped sharply within minutes of the news breaking. Currency traders who had been monitoring the signals leading up to tonight moved fast. Gold prices surged. Bitcoin surged. Safe haven assets across the board saw demand spike as institutional investors began repositioning out of dollar-denominated holdings in real time. On Wall Street, the after-hours reaction told the whole story. Financial sector stocks took hits that reflected the market's understanding that the architecture underpinning American financial dominance had just been structurally challenged in a way that cannot be easily reversed. The Federal Reserve convened an emergency consultation among its senior leadership. Treasury Department officials were pulled into crisis briefings. And the conversations happening in those rooms right now are not comfortable ones because there is no quick fix available for what China just did. You can sanction a company. You can tariff a product. You can sanction a country. You cannot sanction your way out of the world deciding it doesn't need your currency anymore. America's allies are in a tough spot tonight, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that for y'all. Several key U.S. partners, nations that Washington has considered firmly in its economic and security orbit, were part of the bilateral arrangements that China activated tonight. Not because they love Beijing, not because they've abandoned their relationship with the United States, but because they've been watching China's economic weight grow for 20 years and they made the calculation that they needed to hedge. That hedging just became active participation in the most significant challenge to dollar dominance in the post-war era. Japan, South Korea, and European nations are now in the uncomfortable position of watching their most important security partner's financial foundation get rocked, while also being economically entangled with the country that did the rocking. The phone calls between Washington and ally capitals tonight are not easy conversations, because the question being asked in every one of those calls is the same question that nobody has a clean answer to. What does America do now? China's official messaging following the execution of this financial move was calibrated with the precision that Beijing always brings to moments of maximum strategic leverage. State media framed the shift away from dollar-denominated trade as a natural evolution of a multipolar global economy, a development driven by the logic of efficiency and mutual benefit, rather than geopolitical confrontation. The language was economic and reasonable in tone. It was deliberately designed to make the move sound inevitable and rational rather than aggressive. But make no mistake, y'all, this was aggressive. This was one of the most aggressive moves any nation has made against American economic power in living memory. It was just executed with a spreadsheet instead of a missile. And in some ways that makes it harder to respond to, because the rules of engagement for financial warfare are a lot murkier than the rules for military conflict. And Beijing knows that better than anyone. Here's where things stand right now as I bring you this report. China has successfully executed a coordinated collapse of the dollar-dominated trade route across the most significant bilateral economic corridor in the world. Multiple nations have activated alternative currency settlement arrangements simultaneously. The dollar index has dropped sharply. Markets are reacting with volatility that reflects genuine structural concern rather than speculative noise. The Federal Reserve and Treasury are in emergency consultations. American allies are recalibrating. And Beijing is projecting exactly the kind of strategic confidence that comes from executing a move you have spent 10 years preparing. The response from Washington, and there will be a response, is being formulated right now. Whether it comes through financial countermeasures, through trade policy, through security arrangements, or through the kind of back-channel economic diplomacy that never makes the evening news, depends on decisions being made tonight by people whose names most Americans will never know. But the consequences of those decisions will show up in your life, in your wallet, in your interest rate, in the price of everything you buy. That's the reality of what tonight means. Not just for governments and financial institutions. For every single person watching this broadcast. Y'all, if this report gave you clarity on something that the mainstream financial press has been underselling for years, please share it right now. Send it to someone who needs to understand what's happening to the dollar. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think America can defend the dollar's reserve status? Or has China just started a process that can't be stopped? Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell. Because what happens next in the story is going to move fast, and you need to be ahead of it, not catching up to it. This is the story of your financial future unfolding in real time. And I'll be right here bringing it to you straight. Stay with us. This broadcast continues.